What is up, everybody? So I finally bucked up like a big boy and looked at all of the morbid photos of our deceased and unbeloved Jeffrey Epstein. I spread my eyes wide open and glared at the physical details and evidence provided to us, the general public. And I've got to say, there are now three big issues I have with the visible evidence given to us about Epstein's death that I just didn't have before. Three things that are keeping me up at night in a cold sweat, filled with paranoia just for knowing. In this video, I am going to be addressing Epstein's completely suicide inconsistent injuries, his very odd look-alike cadaver photos, and the stairway of all things that allowed access to the cell group where Epstein was held. Now, before I go any further, I do want to say that I will not be showing any graphic images here. However, I will be showing edited versions which outline the issues I now have. They will depict the original morbid images, but will be much more tolerable and acceptable for YouTube, because we have to keep the kiddos safe and shit, right? Now, very briefly, before we get into the 3 points about Epstein's death, I just want to show you guys the detention center, because it's a bit different than I had imagined in my mind. It's this very brutalist, almost futuristic looking giant concrete turd in lower Manhattan, New York. For some reason, I thought he was held at Rikers Island, which is also in New York, but he was actually never held there. Either the Mandela effect hit us on this one, or I just got it wrong. Either way, the Metropolitan Correctional Center, or MCC for short, looks much more accessible, as it is not located on an island. What I find really interesting about this place is that it's essentially just sitting on a New York street, looking like one of the buildings from iRobot or some shit, with no barbed wire fencing or large sand perimeters. In fact, the only barbed wire I can find is the stuff they put on this fence, which prevents inmates from escaping via this external walkway. If they managed to climb that fence, though, and jump to that tree and climb down, they'd be free to begin a real escape. It seems to me like a lack of anti-escape measures, considering they're trying to detain people awaiting federal charges, many of which are looking at life in prison once convicted, right? Anyways, I just thought it was an interesting bit of perspective for those invested in this whole ordeal. Let's look at his injuries. Now, I altered this image to make it appropriate for the video, but I recommend that you look this stuff up for yourself to confirm what I'm saying. The second I looked at this image of Epstein that I altered here, I felt as though the angle of the lines on his neck, where the makeshift noose supposedly was, were completely wrong. If you think about the way that a rope or something rope-like would tension itself around the neck during a hanging, you will realize that it doesn't sit so low down on the neck. But as you can see in these images of the front and the back, it sits at least 1.5 inches below the jaw and goes completely horizontally to the back, to at least 1 inch below his hairline in the back. I found this image which pretty well demonstrates what I'm saying, because it looks like someone else was thinking the same thing. During a normal hanging, the rope will cinch far up on the neck, and it will kill you by compressing your carotid arteries, reducing blood flow to the brain. What we see here instead is that it sat halfway down his neck, causing 3 separate fractures, one on either side of his larynx, and one on the side of his hyoid bone. In hangings, the rope does not sit nearly perfectly horizontal like this, which is what we're seeing here. And here is another graphic which demonstrates what this looks like when someone is using their hands and a piece of rope to strangle someone else from behind. And as we know, the forensic pathologist hired by Epstein's brother to review the autopsy, Dr. Michael Baden, said the following about this inconsistency. Quote, "Those 3 fractures are extremely unusual in suicidal hangings, and could occur much more commonly in homicidal strangulation. I've not seen in 50 years where that occurred in a suicidal hanging." Unquote. I need to point out too that this fact is actively being changed by the media. We are being gaslit. In June of 2023, the Office of the Inspector General released their report, which contained a summary of the witness statement given by one of the 2 guards who found Epstein dead. His name was Michael Thomas. He said that Epstein was suspended 1 inch above the floor in a seated position with the makeshift noose tied to a part of the bunk bed directly above him. Now, what the media is reporting, and what you will find on Wikipedia for some reason, is that Epstein was found in a kneeling position. Here we see it on Wikipedia. At some point, the facts were changed to state that he was kneeling when found. This could have been changed at any point in the last few years, and I'm not really sure how to check. But now we also have this article by AOL.com where it seems like they've also added on to the idea that Epstein was also leaning forward while on his knees. And just a few days ago, on August 1st of 2025, the New York Post released this article, which states, quote, according to reports, he tied the rope to the top of the bunk bed stairs, slipped the noose around his neck, and dropped to his knees. He was found kneeling, leaning forward. So his body weight pulled the garrote tight, unquote. So what reports is the New York Post reading? Because the officials say that he was in a seated position, suspended 1 inch above the floor. Seems to me that they know the hanging isn't making sense, so they're trying to change the facts around so that it's consistent with the injuries. Because now, if we imagine that he tied his makeshift noose to the bunk bed behind him, got on his knees and leaned forward, those photos that they gave us would make a little bit more sense, as the rope was going halfway across his neck. However, it still doesn't manage the fact that you would have to break all the bones in your neck in order to accomplish something that you didn't have to do that for. When you mix this with everything else, the failing cameras, the sleeping guards, the fact that they put him in a cell with this meatball motherfucker, 4-time strangulation homicide, salty spittoon ass, steroid wrecking ball of a man, Nicholas Tartaglione, you can really start to see that yes, someone wanted him dead. Someone wanted him dead as fuck. And you know what? I'd really like to see this Tartaglione guy get interviewed. I'd like to know how Epstein wound up with the bruises on his neck during their little July 23rd incident between him and Tartaglione, just 3 weeks before Epstein supposedly killed himself. I can't help but wonder if this was just the first attempt to get Epstein killed, you know? Put him in a confined space with this guy. But of course, absolutely no one in any position of authority is interested in interviewing anyone related to this case. So, oh well. And this lack of action, to me, breeds the kind of deep distrust, which brings me to my next point, which I know is a bit of a stretch of a theory, but did Epstein even die? We were given these photos, but I have some serious problems with a few things, especially his nose. This photo was taken of him on some kind of a gurney from behind the top of his head. What stuck out to me immediately was just how crooked his nose was here. I mean, look at that thing. Was the cartilage in there boiled like spaghetti? Because if we look at this prior photo of him while he was in prison, you can see that his nose is completely straight. So what the hell is going on here? This photo of his body shows a completely bent nose that goes off to the right. I also have an issue with this photo, which shows a side profile of his head and upper body. First off, I want to say that this just doesn't look like him. And maybe it's just the swelling or something, but in this photo, this guy's nose is much, much smaller than Epstein's. And I'm being serious. I'm not trying to make a joke. We can just say that this guy's nose is completely different than Epstein's. This guy also has red eyebrows, whereas Epstein's were black. I really wonder if they thought of this, if this was a mistake, or if they just don't care. And as I'm making this segment of the video, I'm realizing that these photos will never be put on display for the masses to see. I won't even show them here because I'm pretty certain I'll get my videos taken down. The nature of these photos is probably as close to gore as you can get without being gore. I mean, maybe on 60 Minutes we saw them, but that's a single documentary by a biased group. We won't see them in the media or on a government website that is easily accessible, that's for sure. I think they release stuff like this to appease some people and confuse others like myself. Because unless we were there to see him transitioned on this gurney from his cell, we will never know. This is why I was talking about the prison itself earlier. I just don't think it would be hard to smuggle a body in. And so now we come back to this photo in particular. You can see down here to the left that there are a set of doors where you could quickly park a van off the road, swap a living Epstein out for a lookalike cadaver, and then take off down to the left to what appears to be an underpass or a tunnel. Again, I acknowledge that this is quite a stretch, but I have seen some people talking about the idea of Epstein still being alive and hidden somewhere, and it quickly came to my mind as I was looking at these cadaver photos, as well as photos of the prison itself. It could certainly be a quick and discreet option here in what I think is actually the back of the building. Now, speaking of the building, let's talk about my third and final point of the video. I recently came across this image made by CBS, which does a great job of revealing just how little we see in what we will call a common area of the detention facility. We see that the camera angle we were given by the FBI only barely clips the left rail of the stairway. This is better illustrated in the second 3D model by CBS, which depicts the area from the opposing side, the opposite side, with a path from that doorway directly to Epstein's cell. Looking at these two photos together, we can see that anyone could have entered this common area through that doorway, hugged the right side of the stairs, being sure to stay away from the left guardrail, and would never have been seen by this camera. The video we were given, we know, was altered in Adobe Premiere and had a total of 2 minutes and 53 seconds removed. But during the video, there were also 2 instances of people actually moving around in this space when we were told in the official Department of Justice report that no one was moving around in here during the time period in which these people were picked up on the camera. The first instance of movement we still have no answers on was at 10:40 p.m. and is simply known as the orange blob, where we see what appears to be the orange apparel of a prisoner's jumpsuit. The official response to this, when it was brought up, was that a guard was simply bringing prisoner apparel up the stairs to one of the inmates. The video of this, of course, is not very good. I cleaned it up to the best of my ability, but it really looks like, to me, like someone is wearing an orange jumpsuit and is grabbing that left rail of the stairway as they ascend it. Again, we were originally told nobody at all was moving around in this space during this time. The second event occurs at 4 a.m. the following morning, about 6 hours or so after the orange blob appeared on the stairway, and it's being dubbed the mysterious third figure. This is a person who shows up and speaks to the female guard, Tova Noel, who was the other guard on duty during this time. We have no idea who this is, and what CBS pointed out that I thought was really interesting is that this person actually enters the area of their own free will, despite this door being locked from the inside, normally requiring anyone outside to be allowed in by the guards on duty. So if it wasn't the other guard, Michael Thomas, and they had their own access key, then who the hell was this, and why were they there, and why can't we get a straight answer about them? Once again, I remind you, we were told that nothing was going on in here at all at this point in time. And of course, we have other issues, like a computer cursor is seen floating through the screen at 11:21 p.m., and that the aspect ratio of the video actually changes after the video appears to skip forward 1 minute, although we now know that a total of 3 minutes is missing. If you take raw video from a camera, the aspect ratio never changes. That only happens when you begin altering it digitally. CCTV camera systems from the 90s are not rearranging their resolutions throughout the day on their own. So, I took a closer look, searching for answers, and I came up with even more questions, as usual. It's interesting how often this seems to be the case anytime powerful people are implicated in something. It's interesting how Epstein was given a sweetheart deal during his first encounter with the law in 2008. They allowed him to leave the facility for 12 hours each day, watched over by deputies who were being paid by his nonprofit organization. His cell was kept unlocked at all times. They gave him unlimited access to the attorney room, which had a TV in it. And if you didn't know this, they destroyed his guest logs so that we can't see who visited him during this time. Apparently, when you are a rich and powerful criminal, you get access to the premium facilities that they created in order to coddle you so you don't spill their wonderful secret, as Trump put it. So it's no wonder we pursue answers and end up with more questions. It's because we obviously have a 2-tier system of justice in this country. Anyways, I hope you found this informative. It wasn't all new to me, but looking at the actual images of the cadaver and the facility and the CCTV video sparked some new questions for me, and maybe did for you. So, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.